When you're starting a business, work-life balance is 95% work, 10% balance.
You want to finish the day at 7, but sometimes you can't, right? That's the whole thing owning a business, right? If something comes up, then you have to finish it, right? Sometimes someone will ask me, hey, can you get this done ASAP?
There are, I don't know about any jobs where there is not days that are going to be hard. Work-life balance. What do you do? We're going straight into it. What do you
do?
What do you do to keep that balance?
It's not always the same, I feel like, it depends what you're doing, how much time is needed to complete the specific task.
You're saying for work.
For work, yeah.
Whatever you're doing in work will, I guess, not justify, but choose how you're going to balance out the other end.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, you could kind of look at it, same thing as personal life, right? If you got a wedding that you're attending or something, right, you're obviously going to spend more time doing that part because that's what needs to be done, right? You have to attend this wedding or whatever. So now you have to, say, I'm going to take off a little extra couple hours not to do anything or not to do anything that whole day maybe, so you could attend the wedding, right?
So let's say blanketed, like just in general, what are your go-tos to cut back and like relax?
For me, 100% has been always the gym, working out, because during that time, you try not to look at anything and just focus on yourself. That's one. And then I try to finish the day max at like 7 and then watch some TV, because that's like something that I find relaxing that actually helps me fall asleep. So, which again contributes back to work, right? Because if I don't get a good night rest, well, then your performance is worse, right? But when you get that extra hour in of TV, helps you go to sleep, helps you relax, and then you start fresh again. So like that would be the main two things that I personally do. And then again, like I said, you want to finish the day at 7, but sometimes you can't, right? That's the whole thing owning a business, right? If something comes up, then you have to finish it, right? Sometimes someone will ask me, hey, can you get this done?
Well, specifically with us too, and having Vivek on the other side of the world in a different time zone, our day is their night, our night is their day. So like you said, when you need something to be done so they could still work on it during their current daytime,
exactly,
you're working into the night.
Exactly. So it's like you need to get it done, you got to get it done, right? Sometimes or I want to go at 7 and finish the day, but 10:30 is when I finish, right? So, but waking up, it's always the same, right? Between 6 and 7:30, I try to wake up at the latest, depending, like I like to sleep in during the weekends, but I still work on the weekend. So it's not like I take them off. Like every day is a work day, but like, let's say on a Saturday or Sunday, it may just be different things. I definitely don't like to do things that don't involve just thinking about the project or future, like phone calls and things like that, that I would never take on the weekend. This is just strictly focusing on tasks that are going to make us better in the future somehow, right? But it's still working, you know?
Something that you could play music in the background and just essentially vibe through.
Exactly.
Not very, like you said, mentally draining tasks or something that's like, I got to be in it more than 110%, right?
Exactly. And if something's happening during the weekend, I'll go, right? But I'm also not that type of person where I just want to waste the entire weekend and not do anything, right? So if I have the choice of not doing anything, then I'll be on my computer doing something, you know? But now it's like you kind of have more of a luxury to make those choices. But at the beginning, you never had that luxury, right? You have to be doing things at all times.
When you're starting a business, work-life balance is 95% work, 10% balance of your everyday life. And it sucks. But if your end goal is whatever it is, right? You want to get beyond work, and you want to get there as fast as possible, 12, 14, 16-hour days in working in the business fully, or even if you have a 9 to 5, right? A traditional 8-hour job, and then you come home and you want to put in another 6 to 8 hours, then the rest is sleep, eat and sleep and the little things.
Right.
So when we started, there was no balance. That's why it was good that we didn't have relationships, because if you are single and you're starting a business, it's a lot easier to say no to other things. It was hard to say no to like family events and stuff and being like, I can't. In the beginning, they couldn't realize it, and it was harder for them to realize it, especially when a lot of things weren't moving. Like they didn't see progress because there was a lot of the development stuff. But once things started to get moving and they saw how serious it was a lot better. Now, for sure, the balance is easier, right? Because we have revenue, we have employees to help take on tasks that we did early on, and the balance is a lot more there.
Right. And I mean, at first you have to do those, and it's like the more you do it, the faster you can get to that point of, I guess you call it work-life balance, right?
Right.
You have to go through that phase. And the more you will put in, the faster you're going to get there. I think that's very important to understand. So the least you do, it's always going to kind of be, dragging on, and it's going to take longer, where it's going to feel like 20 years have gone by and there has been no work-life balance.
Here's my thing. Going through that time with my anxiety and my panic attacks, redoing, if I had the chance to redo that, knowing what I went through and how I would change it, I wouldn't change anything except this one part. That 5 to 10% of the balance side would be all in. I would maximize that, and I would probably try and schedule better that balance of the other side of not the work, so that I could maximize that 95% better.
Right. So instead of like, okay, just working nonstop and then finishing day not knowing what you're going to do afterwards, you would figure out that 5 to 10% and make it work, whatever it would be.
Whether it's video games or hanging out with somebody or, working out. Yeah, working out was kind of already planned into the day, but it was more so just like the full disconnection of like, this is my balance of like, I'm not thinking about work. And even that was hard.
Right. And it's not to say that like, even when you're putting in those excessive work hours, it's all work hours, right? Because there are some times where you're just going to be like, I'm not doing anything, or I'm just
got to research some things, look at new software or whatever.
Yeah, and even though then there were times where we would still like during those 16 hours do non-work stuff, but it kind of made it feel like it's still, work, right? So it's like you could take that 1 hour of, let's say, going to grab something to eat and just talking, and you could transition that over to something else. So it's not like, I don't think to be successful, you need to be literally nonstop working. I think that's a little bit excessive, and people say that all the time, but I don't think that's true. Like, of course, the more you put in, the more you're going to get, right? But the important thing here is that you would actually have to work the 16, 17, 18 hours. We're talking about working, not just saying I'm working and you've been doing 16, 17, 18 hours. So if you can't actually do this 16, 17, 18 hours and do the actual work, but you're doing 10, then you could do something else with those 8 hours and figure out how to maximize the 10,
As long as you're efficient. If you could be efficient in a shorter time frame and be as efficient, or you're going to be more inefficient in a longer time frame, figure out and how to be more efficient in a shorter time frame. That way your balance will be a lot more even, right? And now, when we started, we didn't have it. But now, as much as we don't like it certain times, AI has helped people become way more efficient in some tasks. I remember when we had to write articles for SEO for blog, 2, 3, 4,000 word blog posts would take a full day or 2 days sometimes, where now ChatGPT can write you something within
change it
10 minutes or 2 minutes or a minute, and then you spend 30 minutes or an hour changing it.
Right.
And there you go. You just saved yourself so much time. So now being more efficient is easier. But the flip side, I'll say, a lot of people's disconnect, I feel like, is social media, ends up being doom scrolling.
Right.
And before you know it, 30 minutes of checking social media ends up being 2 hours of mindless flicking on to the next video.
And that's the issue.
And that's the issue, because I feel like you're not truly disconnecting. Some people can argue, yeah, it's my gateway to relaxing, but if you're running a business and a lot of it is going to be computer based, I guess it's tough to say, because then my balance, when it's not the dog or hanging out with Jess, is video games or movies, right? So it's not fully disconnecting there, but it's tough, because I feel like this can be a good conversation with somebody who really truly believes social media can be that balance. I don't see it. I see it a little bit, right? But I don't see it being a fully
It's not the right way to use your time for you.
Right.
Right. But that's okay, because everybody's going to have their own way of, I guess, life. Right.
Right. And we're not saying it's wrong, because if it works for you, then by all means. If it's making you
scroll all day, right?
Right. If it's making you that much better, if it's keeping your balance even keeled to keep going in running a business or working your 9-to-5 job at the highest level you can, by all means, do it. Find whatever keeps that balance, right?
Right. And it's important to know like what you want to achieve, first of all, because every goal has a different, requirement in terms of work, right? Like you were talking about the blog articles with AI, right? Yes, everything you can do now instead of 2 days, 30 minutes, but I feel like there's a different problem with that, because if now everybody has that same access to that same AI, which makes it look like everybody can do this task in 30 minutes. So from a competitive standpoint and a work ethic standpoint, that's still kind of irrelevant, because they can produce the same amount of articles at the same time. But the goal here is you want to do more, right? Because that's how you win at the end of the day. So now you have to figure out how can you do more in a specific amount of time, right? So if it's 10 hours a day or 10 hours a day for 4 days a week, and you're more productive than doing 12 hours for 7 days a week, then why would you be doing, the 12 7 times a week, right? If you could do the same amount. So that's the key here. Figure that out, and it doesn't matter what you do with the rest, right?
The little caveat to to the blog articles, like there are going to be people who are just going to use AI and not make any of its changes, right? Like they'll put in the prompt, get the article, and then not make any changes.
Then
that's
yeah.
could be an issue, sure, for whatever your purpose is. If it's for SEO purposes, Google already knows what's AI written versus what's non. So,
And if they don't, they will, because they have to.
right. So in this specific scenario, in that, the effort will be in how well you can change up what AI gave you afterwards and make it that much better and put your personal touch on it, your brand to it.
And that's what counts at the end of the day, right? That's that extra hour spending on that article that will make you win over the other business owner or make you win over the other employee, right? Like that extra hour. So now it's up to you to figure out, am I willing to do the extra hour for this specific task, or I'm just going to half-ass it or whatever you want to call it and leave it at that. So that's what takes you to the next level. And if you have bigger goals, you have to go to those levels as well. So you have to figure that first out and then go with the work-life balance, because to run a tiny business, anybody could have a very, very, good work-life balance. That I think is true. You just have to figure out a couple things that work, how to provide the value to the customer, and keep doing it over and over again. And I think you could become very wealthy doing it.
Here's another thing. I have been seeing a lot more recently of our favorite type of people, gurus, and ads saying, utilize, let's say, these 7 AI tools, and you can start a business learn one tool each day for the next week, and then by next week you can have a 5-figure, 6-figure business right away. Here's the problem. If you're so dependent on those AI tools, what happens if it goes down? What happens if you don't know what to do by yourself when that tool has been running it the whole time? You're screwed. There goes your business. You can't believe that all these tools are there to run it for you. You can't. Because if that's your thought process and you can potentially be successful. If you want to be flipping businesses every 2 months, 3 months, like a new product run through Shopify, by all means, that could work for you, because you're going to be up for 3 months, make your money, and then go on to the next thing.
Right. And people do that.
And people do that. They make money. They're successful. But in the grand scheme of things, long term, building a reputable brand that will last for years and years is always the way to go.
100%. And I think it's easier to do that, honestly, because the longer you're in business, the more you do well in that business,
the easier things come.
Exactly. The easier things come, because people just tell other people, and it makes it easier on yourself, right? So
if you're flying through trends constantly, sure,
you Shopify stores,
you
or
have
whatever,
to put in the hours to rebuild the store, find the product,
the customers with the new name,
right, and redo your ads, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's not as simple as all these gurus are making it out to seem.
100% not. The true Shopify stores that make it are the ones that actually grow the brands, right?
And this goes back into the balance.
100%.
If you're going into that type of business style of changing a business 2, 3, 4 times a year and doing quick little product businesses, where's your balance? You always have to be on top of what's the new trend and constantly reinventing what the next thing is going to be. Like you said,
hard.
If you're building the brand over time, you don't have to keep flopping. You obviously know what's been working, what hasn't been working.
And you have a system.
You have a system in place,
customer base,
customers, you're able to achieve the balance way faster by
100%.
building a brand instead of flipping businesses. It might seem easier the other way because if one business doesn't really take off, then you could just close it and be like, oh, whatever, I'll do the next one. And that has a better shot potentially.
100%. So from a business perspective, it's always focus on the brand and things will get easier. Put in the work early on and then figure out your work balance later. I mean, it can also be done that you're not really putting on, an excessive amount of hours in the first 5 years. You could really start with a work-life balance, because when I started, I went to college, I had a job, and afterwards I did everything that I've done, right? But then I didn't have much of a life after that. So it was like, yeah, I guess you could argue both. I was still doing things, but at the same time, I didn't have the life after that, right? But let's say I didn't have a job and I didn't have school and I just did that. That means I'd still have half time to do something else, right? And it was still possible. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it just depends what you're trying to achieve, your current situation, and then really figure out how to do that work-life balance. But what I will tell you that if you do truly enjoy what you're doing, I think it's one.
Yeah, you're not pushing to be done with the work to get the balance.
Exactly. And that makes the whole thing a lot easier, because I truly enjoy waking up first thing in the morning and going on the computer and doing a little work, no matter what the day is, whether it's a holiday or Sunday or Saturday. I actually enjoy it and think like, what can we do to improve? Like, I enjoy doing those things. So it doesn't matter when it is, I just try to make sure that after 7, I try to end the day, which is still a long day because you got about 12 to 13 hours, potentially times 7 if I do that, right?
Right.
Like yesterday was Sunday. I worked till probably 6 o'clock, and I started the day, I think, a little later at 8:30 yesterday, which was still, how many hours is that? 6, 7, 8, about 8 hours on a Sunday. So when you do times 7, that's a lot of hours. That's probably over 60, 70, 80 hours if we do them. I don't even know, right? Because I don't keep track, which I never have. I never be like, okay, this week I've worked 60 hours. This week I worked 100. I don't think you need to do that, So if you truly figure out what you like doing, I think that's going to be the best way of achieving that work-life balance.
With having the life balance, I feel like there's 2 things that you should focus on, and anybody should focus on. Find one thing that makes you better and smarter, that always improves your mind, right? And the second, find something that is completely the opposite, that is more mindless, where you don't have to think about anything, like a video game or watching a movie or a TV show, reading. I mean, even reading could be both sides of that, right? You can be, depending on what you're reading, you can learn and expand your mind, or it could just be like, if you're reading comics, right? It's the opposite. So I feel like when you're doing the balance of not the work side, try and find one in each, one that keeps growing your mind, that you enjoy, obviously, and a second that's mindless, where you don't have to worry, where it's like your day has been so stressful that you're like, I just want to disconnect and not worry about a thing. That's where the mindless comes in.
For sure. But then again, it always comes down to the goals, right? Because if you're just an employee, we're taking business aside, and you just, okay, I'm making my salary, I'm very happy with the salary. There's not a chance that I'm doing an extra hour past 30 or 40 hours, whatever you work. Then for you definitely have a work-life balance, right? And you're just going to be like, after 40, I'm not reachable.
Possibly. Everybody's different, right? Especially in the economy now, people have 2 jobs. Some even have 3 or more, So just because somebody works a 9 to 5 doesn't mean they have a better life balance. It just might mean that, yeah, if they're happy with,
It comes down to the happiness.
I
is
could
what
also
I'm
see
saying.
that if they are happier with their job, they might be more willing to stay an extra 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to help out if the business is short staffed or, you know, something else is going on in that scenario, right? I would see the opposite, you know, if you didn't like your job, you're 9 to 5, you're clocked out, it's done and over, I'm out. You're not going to see me. You're not going to hear from me until I clock in the next day.
That's why I think it matters with your current situation always, right? The goals and current situation. So, yeah, in that situation, you could be happy with the job or not happy. If you're not happy, then yeah, you're clocking out and you're disappearing. If you are happy, then you might work an extra hour, maybe for free, even help out, right?
There are, I don't know about any jobs where there is not days that are going to be hard. Your main goal should be that you are generally happy more than 50% of the time.
I would say
I would
more
say
than that.
closer to 75. 75, if you can get happiness out of your job 75 to 80% of the time, and 20%, 25% is not crazy hard or bad, but just like not great days, then it's good.
I think where it's like you wake up and you first thing you think about is like, oh, I have to go to work. I think that's where it's a problem. If you don't and you just wake up and you show up and you go through the motion and then everything is good.
On a daily basis, you're
On
saying.
a daily basis.
On a daily basis, you wake up and you're dreading going to work. Yeah,
Right.
because there are days where people wake up and are like, I don't want to go
Absolutely, right?
Everybody's had that.
Right. So if that's the case, I think that's okay. But yeah, I mean, work-life balance is going to be different. Hey, you want a promotion, you want to move up at a company,
You got to work more.
you got to work more, right? And that
You got to
balance
show you deserve it.
is going to be different. You have to deserve it.
And that's the thing. Once you get that promotion, maybe in the beginning you're going to work just as hard or maybe even a little harder.
Learn everything.
But once you learn everything, now, since you're at another position, there are going to be people under you working for you. Your balance is going to spread more towards
Yeah, you're going to figure out
the
your
happier
systems,
sides. Yeah.
how to leverage the people, how to be happier, and then just focus on how to make sure that your job is still, number one in that sense where you're improving, because that's always got to be there. You're most likely going to lose it after a while because things change in markets and you have to stay on top of that or else you're not going to perform, right?
Right.
So you always have to put in a little extra at certain positions. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about that topic. And it's going to be much different for everybody.
Absolutely. And I know we're both curious to know. In the comments, leave a comment if you're happy with your work-life balance. If you're not, what's kind of keeping you from getting that balance? Is it, you're not happy in your job and you're looking for something new? What can it be? Let us know.